My own mother took the microphone in front of nearly 200 guests and said something I will never be able to forget. She told them I was a liar. She said I had trapped my husband. She claimed that everything they thought they knew about me, every version of me they trusted, was false. The room went silent. I was still holding my bouquet. My mascara hadn't even smudged yet, but inside, I was coming apart piece by piece. What my mother didn't know was this. My husband had spent the previous 6 months quietly investigating her, and what he uncovered, forged paperwork, missing savings, recorded admissions, would dismantle more than a decade of lies in less than 5 minutes. By the end of that reception, 6 people walked out in tears. Not because of my mother, because they realized something far worse. They had been her victims too. Before if this story truly speaks to you, and let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is there. Let me take you back 3 years, to the night I first understood that something in my family was deeply, profoundly wrong. I grew up believing I was bad with money, not because anyone ever showed me a spreadsheet, not because anyone pointed out reckless spending or unpaid bills, but because my mother said it, over and over again. From the moment I was old enough to hold $1, Elaine Wilson controlled every cent that entered our house. My allowance? She kept it. Birthday money from relatives? I'll put it somewhere safe for you, honey. My summer job paychecks at 16? Give them to me. You'll just waste it. And I believed her. I believed her the way you believe the sky is blue. Without question, without evidence, without ever thinking to ask why. When I was 17, my grandfather, Franklin Wilson, passed away. He was a retired contractor. Quiet, smelled like cedar and black coffee. He used to call me Hadassah girl and slip me $10 bills when my mom wasn't looking. After his funeral, I asked my mother if Grandpa had left anything for me or my younger sister, Rebecca. She didn't hesitate, not even a blink. He barely left enough to cover the funeral, she said. You know he wasn't a wealthy man. I never saw a will, and I never asked again. At 22, I moved out. I rented a studio apartment barely bigger than a parking space and started freelancing as a visual designer. I worked 12-hour days. I tracked every expense in a notebook, an actual paper notebook, because I was terrified of overspending. And still, nothing made sense. Money would appear, then disappear. Deposits I didn't recognize. Withdrawals I couldn't explain. I'd call the bank, get transferred 3 times, feel embarrassed, and give up. I told myself what my mother had always told me. You're just not good with money, Hadassah. I was 29 years old when I finally learned the truth. I wasn't bad with money. Someone was taking it. This is how my mother operated. Anytime I asked a question, about money, about decisions, about why things felt unfair, she didn't answer. She cried. After everything I sacrificed as a single mother, you're accusing me? That one sentence ended every conversation. It was her master key. One turn, and every door slammed shut. My parents divorced when I was 8. My father, Robert Wilson, moved to Oregon. The calls became shorter. Then they stopped. Elaine became the center of gravity in our house, and she liked it that way. She told relatives I was difficult. She told church friends I was ungrateful. She even told our neighbor that I had once stolen $40 from her purse. I was 11. I never stole anything. But that neighbor still looks at me sideways to this day. Meanwhile, my little sister Rebecca lived in a completely different reality. Mom paid her college tuition, bought her a used Honda Civic for her 20th birthday, took her shopping for interview clothes when she applied to graduate school. When I asked why I never received the same help, Elaine already had an answer prepared. Rebecca is responsible, she said. You're not. I swallowed that explanation year after year. I swallowed it like medicine I believed I deserved. Then, about 3 months before I met Ethan, something happened. Late one night, out of nowhere, my sister Rebecca sent me a text. Hey, did Mom ever mention Grandpa's trust to you? Something feels off with my tuition account. I stared at that message for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed nothing. I closed the app, set my phone down, and went to bed. I wasn't ready. Not yet. But 3 months later, I met someone who made me realize the truth. I had been ready all along. I just needed someone to believe me first. I met Ethan Cole on a Tuesday. He was sitting alone in a corner booth at a cafe downtown, laptop open, papers spread across the table like a crime scene. I was there to meet a client who never showed up. I ordered a coffee, sat 2 booths away, and tried not to stare at the man who was glaring at a spreadsheet like it had personally offended him. He caught me looking, smiled, and said, "Sorry about the mess. Numbers don't like to behave." I laughed. He asked if I wanted to sit closer so he wouldn't have to raise his voice. I said yes. That was it. No fireworks, no grand moment. Just a man with kind eyes and an impeccably organized laptop bag. Ethan was 32, a forensic accountant at an independent auditing firm. Over our third date, he explained what he did for a living. "I follow money that doesn't want to be found." I thought that sounded interesting. I didn't think it would matter. As weeks turned into months, Ethan started noticing things about me that no one else ever had. "You budget everything, Hadassah," he said one night. "Groceries, utilities, even coffee. You track it all." I shrugged. "I guess I'm just bad with money, so I overcompensate." He didn't smile. He set his fork down and looked at me the same way he looked at spreadsheets. Calm, focused, like the answer was right there if he kept reading. "You haven't bought yourself new shoes in 2 years. Your winter coat has a broken zipper. You eat rice 4 nights a week." He paused. "That's not someone who's bad with money," he said quietly. "That's someone who never has enough. And I don't understand why." I changed the subject, talked about a design project. He let me. But the look in his eyes didn't disappear. He had seen something that didn't add up. And Ethan was not the kind of man who could ignore a number out of place. The first time Ethan met my mother, she was perfectly charming. It was a Sunday dinner at Elaine Wilson's house. She cooked pot roast, brought out the good china, even lit candles. "I just want to make a nice impression," she told me on the phone that morning. The first hour went smoothly. Elaine asked Ethan about his family, complimented his tie, laughed at his jokes. Then she shifted. "Hadassah has always been a dreamer," she said, refilling her wine glass. "Not really a doer. Head in the clouds." Ethan set his knife down gently. "Actually," he said, "she built her freelance business from scratch. That takes real discipline." Elaine's smile stayed in place, but something behind her eyes went cold, like a door quietly closing. "Well," she said lightly, "a mother sees things a partner doesn't." "I'm sure," Ethan replied, polite, measured, but he didn't agree. The rest of dinner was quieter. My sister Rebecca texted me under the table. Elaine cleared the plates with just a little too much force. That night, my phone rang at 11. "I don't trust him, Hadassah." "Mom, he was perfectly kind to you." "He's after something." "He's not after anything." "Men like that," she said. "Smooth, educated, they always want something." I closed my eyes. "Mom, please, I love him." Silence, a long one. Then very softly she said, "You'll see." And she hung up. The next morning, in the car, Ethan said something that stayed with me. "Your mom asked me what I do 3 times last night." "She's just curious," I said. "Maybe," he replied. But every time I said forensic accounting, she changed the subject, like the words made her uncomfortable. I laughed it off, told him he was overthinking it. He nodded, didn't push. Looking back now, that dinner was the moment everything shifted. Not for me, for my mother. She saw Ethan clearly that night, and she was afraid. Because for the first time in my life, someone close to me knew how to follow the money. Elaine didn't waste time. Within a week, she launched a quiet campaign, phone call by phone call, text by text. She started with my Aunt Susan. I know because Susan brought it up at a family barbecue, trying to sound casual. "Your mom says Ethan is a bit controlling," she said. "Is that true?" "He's not controlling," I replied. "He's an accountant. He monitors spending. That's literally his job." Susan shrugged. But the seed had been planted. Then Elaine went to my sister. Hadassah is pulling away from this family, she told Rebecca over lunch. That man is isolating her, Rebecca told me later. She said she didn't know what to believe. And then the messages started coming to me directly. Soft, gentle, almost sweet. That was always the most dangerous version of my mother. Are you sure Ethan isn't just with you for stability, honey? I just worry. You've never been very good at reading people. A mother knows. I can see things you can't. I finally called her. Why are you doing this, Mom? I'm protecting you, she said. That's what mothers do. It doesn't feel like protection. There was a pause. Then she said quietly, That's because you've never known what's good for you. After that call, I sat on my kitchen floor with my knees pulled to my chest, focusing on my breathing. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to apologize. And that part scared me the most, because it meant her voice was still louder than mine inside my own head. That night, I looked at Ethan across the dinner table. He was reading, calm and steady. I hear you, Mom, I whispered to no one. But I get to decide what's good for me now. I just didn't know yet how much that decision would cost. Ethan proposed on a Saturday in October. He took me back to the cafe where we met. Same corner booth, same awful fluorescent lighting. He'd hidden the ring inside a thick hardcover book he'd been pretending to read, some outdated tax law manual. When he opened it to reveal the hollowed-out center, I laughed so hard I cried. Is that a yes? He asked. It's a yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and for about 45 seconds, the world felt perfect. Then I called my mother. Mom, I said. Ethan proposed. I said yes. Silence. 10 full seconds. I counted. I hope you know what you're doing, she said. No congratulations, no excitement, no, I'm happy for you, sweetheart. Just cold, measured, like a warning. I hung up and told myself it was shock, that she'd come around. 2 days later, I received a letter from my bank. It said a savings account under my name had been closed at the request of the joint account holder. Remaining balance, $0. I called immediately. I didn't request this, I said. I didn't even know this account existed. There was a pause. Keyboard clicks. Ma'am, this account was opened when you were 17, the representative said. The cosigner is Elaine Wilson. My stomach dropped. 17? Yes, ma'am. August 2013. August 2013. The month my grandfather died. What was the balance before it was closed? I asked. More typing. I'm not able to disclose the full account history over the phone, the representative said, but the closing balance was withdrawn in a single transaction 3 days ago. 3 days ago, the day after I told my mother I was getting married. I set the phone down. My hands were shaking. 17. That was the year Grandpa Franklin Wilson passed away. The year my mother told me he hadn't left much of anything. How long had this been happening? That night, I sat across from Ethan at our kitchen table and told him everything. The bank letter, the joint account I didn't know existed, the timing. 3 days after the engagement, August 2013. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the table. He didn't even look surprised. Exactly. He looked like a man who had been waiting for a missing puzzle piece to fall into place. And it finally had. Can I see your bank statements? He asked. All of them? I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust him, but because some part of me, the part my mother had built, was still whispering that I had done something wrong, that this was somehow my fault. All of them, he repeated gently, like he was speaking to someone standing at the edge of a cliff. I opened my laptop and gave him everything, every login, every statement, every account tied to my name, every piece of my financial life. Ethan worked until 3 in the morning. I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, he was still sitting at the table, but his face was different, harder. Hadassah, he said quietly, there are at least 4 accounts linked to your social security number that you didn't open. 4. And they've all been systematically drained over the past 12 years. 12 years. Since I was 17, since Grandpa Franklin died, I felt sick. Not because of the money, because of the math. 12 years of lies. 12 years of "you're just bad with money, Hadassah." 12 years of eating rice 4 nights a week while my mother emptied accounts I didn't even know existed. "What do you want to do?" Ethan asked. I stared at the table, at the numbers on his screen, at the man who had stayed up all night chasing the truth because I mattered enough to him. "Find everything," I said. That was the night Ethan started building a case. He didn't know yet that what he would uncover was worse than either of us imagined. He began with my grandfather. "If accounts were opened in your name when you were 17, he said, "there's usually a trigger, an inheritance, a trust, something that created the money in the first place." He searched public probate records first. That's where he found my grandfather's name. Then he tracked down Grandpa's attorney, a retired man named Thomas Avery, living just outside the city, still sharp at 74. Mr. Avery remembered Franklin clearly. "Good man," he said. "Came to me in 2012, about a year before he passed." He had wanted to set up a trust for his 2 granddaughters, made sure it was airtight, and he still had the original documents. Ethan sat at Mr. Avery's kitchen table and read the will. Then he read it again. My grandfather had established a trust of $210,000, split evenly between his 2 granddaughters, Hadassah Wilson and Rebecca Wilson. My mother, Elaine Wilson, was named as the trust administrator, but the instructions were clear. Each granddaughter was to receive her share when she turned 21. I was 29. Rebecca was 25. Neither of us had ever received a single dollar. Then Ethan asked the question that changed everything. "Do you have any other version of this will on file?" Mr. Avery frowned. "What do you mean, other version? There's only one." Ethan pulled out his phone and showed him a document. It was the version my mother had shown the family years ago. All assets to Elaine Wilson for the management and care of the family. Mr. Avery stared at the screen for a long time. "That's not what Franklin signed," he said slowly. "That's not even the same format. 2 wills, 1 real, 1 forged, and $105,000 that should have been mine 8 years ago." "Your grandfather didn't forget you, Hadassah," Mr. Avery said. "He never did." Ethan didn't pressure me. He never did. But he said something I couldn't ignore. "If we're going to build a real case," he said, "we need her to say it in her own words." We lived in a one-party consent state. That meant I could legally record a phone call without telling the other person. I knew the law. I just didn't know if I could survive the conversation. It took me 3 days to make the call. I sat on the bedroom floor. Ethan was in the next room, close enough to hear, far enough to give me space. My hands were shaking so badly I had to hold the phone with both palms. I pressed call. She picked up on the second ring. "Mom," I said, "did Grandpa leave anything for me and Rebecca?" She answered immediately. Too immediately. "I already told you," she said. "He barely left enough to cover the funeral." "But someone mentioned there might have been a trust," I said. "Who told you that?" Her voice sharpened. "That man, Ethan. He's filling your head with nonsense." "Mom," I said quietly, "I just need the truth." And then came the shift, the softening, the tone she had used on me my entire life. "Baby," she said, "I am the truth. Everything I did was to protect you girls." "Protect us from what?" Silence. I could hear her breathing on the line. "From making the same mistakes I made," she said at last. "Your grandfather's money would have ruined you." I nearly dropped the phone. She had said it. Not that the money didn't exist, that it would have ruined me. In that moment, everything locked into place. The trust was real. The money was real. And she had taken it. I ended the call and let the phone fall onto the carpet. Ethan appeared in the doorway. He didn't ask questions. He didn't speak. He just sat down beside me. "She said it would have ruined me," I whispered. She spent it on herself. And without realizing it, she had recorded her own confession. The wedding was 2 months away. Ethan and I made the decision together. We wouldn't act yet. Not until the case was airtight. He sent copies of everything. The original will, the forged version, the bank records, the recording, to an attorney and to a secure cloud backup. The evidence lived in 3 places: on his phone, on 2 hard drives, and in a locked folder at the lawyer's office. If anything goes sideways, Ethan said, we're covered from every angle. I nodded and tried to focus on wedding details instead. The venue, the flowers, the guest list, 200 people, family, friends, co-workers, and Elaine. That's when something strange happened. My mother, who had spent weeks trying to sabotage my relationship, suddenly became helpful. She called with caterer suggestions, offered to handle the seating chart, asked about centerpieces. She was warm, engaged, almost excited. I just want your day to be perfect, baby, she said. I should have been suspicious. But there's a part of every daughter, no matter how deeply she's been hurt, that wants to believe her mother is capable of loving without conditions. I let her back in. She asked for one thing: a speaking slot at the reception. A mother's toast to her daughter, she called it. I said yes. That same week, Rebecca called me. Her voice was low. Mom's been on the phone constantly, she said. She's been talking to Uncle Daniel. She sounds angry. About what? I don't know, Rebecca said. But it doesn't feel right. That night, I asked Ethan, should we be worried? He looked at me from across the kitchen counter, calm as always, but there was something behind his eyes I hadn't seen before: readiness. We should be prepared, he said. I gave my mother the microphone. I handed the wolf the keys to the henhouse, and I had no idea what she was planning to do with them. At this point, I had proof that my mother had forged my grandfather's will, drained my accounts, and lied to me for over a decade, and now she wanted to give a toast at my wedding. A 2 if you would have shut it down right there. I really want to know what you would have done. Now let me tell you what happened next. The day was perfect. That's the part that makes it worse. June 14th. An outdoor garden estate 20 minutes outside the city. A white canopy, fairy lights woven through old oak trees, round tables draped in linen, pale blue hydrangeas in glass vases. The kind of place I had pinned to a vision board 5 years earlier and never imagined I'd actually stand inside. 200 guests filled the chairs for the ceremony. Ethan's parents, his older brother, college friends, co-workers, neighbors. On my side, Aunt Susan, Uncle Daniel, cousins, a few high school friends, my grandfather's old fishing buddy, and Rebecca, sitting in the front row in a sage green dress, already crying before the music even started. I walked down the aisle alone, no one to give me away. I'd decided that months earlier. If I was walking into a new life, I would walk in on my own feet. Ethan was waiting for me beneath an arch of white roses. His eyes were already red when I reached him. We said our vows, simple, honest, real. He held my hands the entire time. I choose you, he said. Today, tomorrow, when it's easy, when it's not. We exchanged rings. We kissed. Everyone stood and applauded. And for a moment, I thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this would just be a wedding. A beautiful, ordinary, perfect wedding. The reception began. Dinner was served. People laughed, clinked glasses, danced. Golden hour light spilled through the trees. And at the family table, my mother sat in a dark crimson dress, richer, bolder, louder than anything else in the room. She looked beautiful. She always did. Her hair was perfect, her lipstick fresh. She smiled at everyone who passed. But her eyes, if you knew where to look, were ice cold. For 3 hours, I let myself believe this was just a wedding, just a beautiful, normal wedding. Then, just after 8 o'clock, the MC tapped his glass. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, we have a very special toast this evening. Please welcome the mother of the bride, Elaine Wilson. Applause followed, warm, polite, especially from the older guests. This was supposed to be the gentle part of the night, the moment where a mother tells a sweet story about her little girl, and everyone reaches for their napkins. Elaine Wilson stood up. She smoothed the crimson fabric of her dress and accepted the microphone from the MC with a practiced smile. She stepped toward the small podium near the dance floor. Behind her, the projector screen, set up for a photo slideshow later, remained dark. Fairy lights glowed softly above her head. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she said. Her voice was steady, warm, confident. She looked out at the crowd, then she looked down at me. "I want to talk about my daughter." I smiled. Under the table, I squeezed Ethan's hand. "Hadassah was the sweetest little girl," Elaine continued. "Always drawing, always dreaming." A few guests nodded. Someone murmured, "Ah." She had this way of looking at the world like it owed her something beautiful. Light chuckles rippled through the room. My shoulders relaxed. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe this really was just a toast. Then her voice shifted, just slightly, a half step lower, slower. "But there are things about my daughter that none of you know." The chuckles stopped. I sat up straighter. Ethan's hand tightened around mine. Elaine wasn't looking at the crowd anymore. She was looking directly at me. "Things I've tried to tell her," she said. "Things I've begged her to face." My chest locked. I couldn't breathe. At the family table, Rebecca slowly reached for her phone. She placed it face down on her lap and pressed record. And then my mother said the words that split my wedding in half. "I want everyone here to know," Elaine said, her voice carrying clearly across 200 silent faces, "that my daughter trapped this man." The word trapped hit the room like a slap. No one moved. "She has been lying about who she is," Elaine continued. A spoon clattered against a plate somewhere behind me. Someone inhaled sharply. I couldn't tell who. The room became a single, suffocating wall of eyes. "Hadassah has been hiding debts," she said. "Hiding her past. Hiding who she really is. From Ethan, and from all of you." My fingers went numb around my napkin. I could still feel the fairy lights above us. The warm June air. The faint scent of hydrangeas. None of it felt real anymore. "I tried to stop this wedding," Elaine said, pressing a hand to her chest, the gesture she had perfected over decades. "I begged her to come clean. She refused." A murmur spread across the tables. Ethan's mother covered her mouth. His father leaned forward, jaw tight. "So I'm doing it for her," Elaine said. She turned back to the crowd now, not to me. "Because that's what a mother does." She set the microphone on the podium. Then she stepped down and returned to her chair with the posture of someone who had just delivered a eulogy. Righteous. Untouchable. She smoothed her dress and took a sip of water. 200 people stared at me. The bride in white, sitting beside a groom who had just been painted as her victim. I couldn't speak. I couldn't stand. I couldn't even cry. Under the table, Rebecca's phone was still recording. And beside me, Ethan hadn't let go of my hand. Not once. He leaned in, close enough that only I could hear him. "Do you trust me?" I looked at him. My husband. My partner. The man who had spent 6 months preparing for a moment he had prayed would never come. I nodded. Ethan squeezed my hand one last time. Then he let go. He stood slowly, adjusted his jacket, buttoned the single button with the same calm precision he used for everything. Spreadsheets, grocery lists, promises. The room watched him, 200 people who no longer knew what to believe. He walked toward the podium, no rush, no shaking hands. His shoes clicked against the wooden dance floor in the silence. Elaine looked up from her water glass. For the first time that night, something flickered behind her eyes, something she wasn't fast enough to hide. Ethan picked up the microphone. He held it like someone who had never planned to use one, and didn't particularly want to. "Now," he said evenly, "I appreciate Elaine's concern." His voice wasn't cold, it wasn't angry, it was level. The way a bridge is level, built to carry weight. "She's right about one thing," he continued. "There are things many of you don't know." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. "But the person who's been lying, it isn't Hadassah." He looked directly at my mother. "Actually, Elaine," he said calmly. I have something to share about your family. Elaine's mouth opened, then closed. You see, Ethan said, I'm a forensic accountant. It's my job to follow money that doesn't want to be found. 6 months ago, he explained, we had discovered something in my financial records that didn't make sense. So I started looking. He unlocked his phone and held it up. And what I found, he said, is something I think everyone here deserves to see. 200 people leaned forward. I could hear chairs creak, suit jackets brushed fabric, dresses shifted softly. The garden was so quiet I could hear crickets in the hedges beyond the canopy. Ethan connected his phone to the projector, the same one we'd planned to use for our wedding slideshow. The screen behind the podium flickered to life. My mother's face drained of color. 2 documents appeared side by side. This, Ethan said, pointing to the left, is the original last will and testament of Franklin Wilson, filed in 2012 with his personal attorney, Thomas Avery. Notarized, witnessed, legally binding. He let the room read it. I watched eyes move across the screen. It establishes a trust of $210,000, split equally between Franklin's 2 granddaughters, Hadassah Wilson and Rebecca Wilson. A murmur rippled through the guests. My mother, Elaine Wilson, was named the trust administrator, Ethan continued. The will is explicit. Each granddaughter receives her share upon turning 21. He paused. Let the silence do its work. Hadassah is 29. Rebecca is 25. Neither of them has ever received a single dollar. Then he pointed to the document on the right. And this, he said, is the version Elaine showed the family after Franklin's death. The words were unmistakable. All assets to Elaine Wilson for the management and care of the family. The room broke into whispers, quiet at first, then spreading like a crack in glass. These 2 documents are not the same, Ethan said calmly. One of them is real. One of them is forged. Susan stood up so abruptly her napkin fell to the floor. She didn't pick it up. Daniel sat frozen, both hands flat on the table, staring at the screen like he'd seen a ghost. My mother's chair scraped back. She was on her feet. That's a lie, she shouted, her voice sharp and ragged. He's making this up. He fabricated it. These are official documents, Elaine, Ethan said evenly. He didn't raise his voice, not even slightly. Notarized and verified by the original attorney. He turned back to the room. My wife, he said, was supposed to receive $105,000 8 years ago. He looked directly at my mother. She never saw a penny. Elaine opened her mouth. Nothing came out. But there's more, Ethan said. Those 3 words landed like stones dropped into still water. The ripple reached every table. He tapped his phone. A progress bar appeared on the screen. Then audio, clear and unmistakable, filled the garden through the reception speakers. My voice first. Mom, did Grandpa leave anything for me and Rebecca? Then hers. I already told you he barely left enough to cover funeral costs. A pause. My voice again. But someone mentioned there might have been a trust. Then her tone sharpened. Who told you that? That Ethan? He's filling your head with nonsense. Guests glanced at one another. Some turned toward my mother. She was gripping the back of her chair now, knuckles white. Then came the part everyone would remember. My voice, steady. Mom, I just need the truth. And hers, soft, sweet. The voice of a mother who knows exactly how to sound convincing. Baby, I am the truth. Everything I did was to protect you girls. Protect us from what? Silence on the recording. Then her answer. From making the same mistakes I made. Your grandfather's money would have ruined you. The audio stopped. The garden went so still I could hear ice shifting in a glass 3 tables away. In her own voice, in her own words. Elaine had confirmed that the money existed and that she had taken it. That was taken out of context, she shouted. Ethan didn't flinch. There are 7 minutes of context on that recording, Elaine, he said. Would you like me to play all of it? She didn't answer. At the family table, Rebecca stood up, phone still recording, tears streaming down her face. Mom, she said. Her voice cracked. Is my tuition account real, or did you take from me too? Elaine spun toward her youngest daughter. Don't you dare turn on me. I'm not turning on you, Rebecca said. I'm asking a question. It started with Susan. She'd been standing since the wills appeared on the screen. Now she stepped forward, hands trembling, voice loud enough for the entire garden to hear. Elaine, you told me you'd pay me back the $30,000. You said you were struggling. You said it was for the girls. Elaine snapped back. Susan, sit down. I took out a second mortgage for you. Susan's voice broke. I almost lost my house. Then Daniel spoke. He didn't stand. He didn't raise his voice. She pushed me off the trust, he said hoarsely. Told me Dad wanted it that way. Said he didn't trust me to handle the money. He shook his head slowly. I believed her for 11 years. 2 tables back, Robert spoke up. She borrowed my car in 2019, he said. Said she needed it for 2 weeks. Told me it was totaled in a parking lot. He swallowed. I never even filed a claim. She cried so hard. One by one, like dominoes, the stories came out. Each confession pulling another loose. Each one a separate wound, covered for years by the same warm smile and the same wounded mother act. 6 people left the reception. Susan walked out in tears, her husband's arm around her shoulders. Daniel followed, one hand pressed to his face. Robert left quietly. Daniel's wife, Linda, one of my mother's oldest friends, slipped out without a word. And Rebecca walked past our mother without looking at her, phone clutched to her chest, tears still falling. They didn't leave because they hated Elaine. They left because they recognized themselves on that screen. They were victims too, or they were ashamed they'd believed her for so long. My mother stood alone in her crimson dress, fairy lights above her, candles flickering, 200 witnesses watching, and for the first time in my life, I saw her without her mask. I don't remember deciding to stand, my body just did. The chair slid back. My dress whispered against the tablecloth. Ethan's hand brushed my arm, not to stop me, just to remind me he was there. I walked toward my mother slowly, past tables of guests who didn't know whether to watch or look away, past the projector screen still glowing with 2 wills, one real, one fake, past the speakers that still carried the echo of her own voice. I stopped 3 feet from her. Mom! She looked up at me. Her eyes were wild, not with guilt, not with regret, but with the frantic, cornered look of someone who had run out of moves. You don't understand, she said. I do, I replied. My voice was steady. I don't know how, but for the first time it was. You told me I was bad with money. I wasn't. You were taking it. She opened her mouth. You said Grandpa didn't leave us anything. He did. And you stole it. I was trying to... You said Ethan was after something, I continued. He was. He was after the truth. Elaine's chin trembled. Everything I did was for this family. No, I said quietly. Everything you did was for control. And I took a breath, the deepest one I had taken all night. I'm not going to scream at you. I'm not going to make a scene. She stared at me, unblinking. I'm going to do something you never expected, I said. I'm going to walk away and let the truth speak for itself. I turned around, walked back to my table, sat down beside my husband, picked up my glass of water, and took a sip. My hands didn't shake. You raised me to be quiet, I said, without turning around, loud enough for the room to hear. You didn't raise me to be stupid. No one applauded. No one needed to. The silence said everything. The week after the wedding, Ethan and I sat in a law office on the 4th floor of a downtown building. The attorney's name was Margaret Lowell. Silver hair, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, 22 years specializing in estate fraud and financial exploitation. She didn't make small talk. She opened the folder Ethan had prepared, slipped on her glasses, and began to read. We sat in silence for 11 minutes. I counted the ticks of the wall clock. Finally, she closed the folder. You have a very strong case. Ethan nodded. We know the forged will alone could warrant criminal referral. Combined with the bank records, the unauthorized accounts, and the recorded admission, Margaret said, this is textbook financial exploitation. She turned to me. What outcome are you hoping for? I had thought about that question for weeks. Revenge? No. Prison? No. I want what was taken returned, I said. Mine and my sister's, and I want her removed from any legal authority over our finances, permanently. Margaret nodded. We'll file a civil suit to recover the misappropriated trust funds. I'd also recommend reporting this to Adult Protective Services. I flinched at the word exploitation. It sounded too big, too clinical. But Ethan placed his hand on my knee beneath the desk, and I understood. It was the right word. It had always been the right word. We're not pressing criminal charges right now, Ethan said. We're giving her the opportunity to make this right through the civil process. Margaret raised an eyebrow. That's generous. I looked at the folder. 12 years of lies pressed flat between manila covers. This isn't revenge, I said. This is accountability. Margaret almost smiled. Almost. Then let's get started. Elaine fought back. Of course she did. Within 10 days, she hired her own attorney, a younger man with a polished briefcase who clearly hadn't read the entire file yet. Through him, she issued a statement calling Hadassah and Rebecca ungrateful daughters attempting to commit elder abuse against a devoted single mother. It lasted 72 hours. After reviewing Ethan's evidence package, the original will, the forged version, the bank records, the recorded phone call, the forensic accounting report, her attorney called her into his office. 3 days later, he told her what Margaret had already told us. Mrs. Wilson, he said, I strongly recommend you settle. Elaine refused, fired him, tried to find another attorney. 2 declined after reviewing the case. Then the phone calls started. She called Susan. Susan didn't answer. She called Daniel. He answered once. You need help, Elaine, he said. Real help. From a professional. Then he hung up. She called Rebecca 3 times. On the 4th call, my sister answered. Mom, Rebecca said softly, I love you, but I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Please, Elaine begged. You're all I have left. Then start by telling the truth, Rebecca said. Not your version, the actual truth. Elaine hung up. I didn't hear any of those calls myself. Rebecca told me about them later over coffee, her hands wrapped around her mug like she was holding herself together. What I heard from Ethan, who heard it from Margaret, was this. Elaine spent that first week alone in the house she had bought with money that wasn't hers. She sat in the living room, looking through old photos. 4 people in the frame. Her, me, Rebecca, Grandpa Franklin, a 4th of July picnic. I don't know if she cried from guilt or from loss, but I do know this. The people she had lost weren't in that photo. They were the ones she had driven away. The civil case took 4 months. It felt like 4 years. Margaret Lowell was methodical. Margaret Lowell filed the recovery suit. She submitted Ethan's forensic accounting report and presented the forged will alongside the authenticated original. The judge reviewed everything. Elaine's 3rd attorney, a court-appointed one, after she had burned through her savings trying to fight, didn't contest the evidence. He couldn't. There was nothing to contest. The ruling was direct. Elaine Wilson was ordered to return the full trust amount, $210,000 plus accrued interest, bringing the total judgment to approximately $238,000 to be divided equally between Hadassah and Rebecca. To pay it, Elaine had to sell the house she had bought 6 years earlier, the house with the renovated kitchen, the paved driveway, the backyard where she had hosted Easter brunches, the house that had cost $280,000, paid for in large part with money taken from her own daughters and her own father's dying wishes. It sold in 31 days. After the trust repayment and legal fees, Elaine moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side of town. No backyard, no driveway, no Easter brunches. Susan filed a separate civil claim for the $30,000 Elaine had borrowed and never returned. She won. The money came out of the remaining sale proceeds. Daniel requested a formal audit of the trust's historical transactions. An additional $15,000 in unauthorized withdrawals was uncovered and added to the judgment. Elaine was permanently removed from any fiduciary role involving family assets. And Hillcrest Community Church, where she had served on the Women's Ministry Board for 9 years, quietly asked her to step back for a season. No one used the word expelled. They didn't have to. The numbers didn't lie. And this time, neither did the court. Rebecca never posted the video online. She told me she thought about it once, late at night, angry enough to want the whole world to see. But she didn't. Instead, she sent it privately. To Daniel, to Susan, to Robert, to a handful of relatives who had spent years hearing Elaine's version of everything and never questioned it. The video moved through the family like a quiet earthquake. No one shared it publicly, but everyone who watched it came away changed. The calls started coming in, not to Elaine, to me. Robert was first. "I'm sorry, Hadassah," he said. "I believed her. I should have asked you." Then Susan's husband. "We had no idea," he said. "None of us did." Then a handwritten letter arrived on cream stationery, the cursive unsteady with age. It was from Aunt Dorothy, my grandfather's sister, 78 years old, living alone 2 states away. She wrote, "Dear Hadassah, I just learned what my niece did to you and your sister. Franklin would be so proud of you, sweetheart. He always said you had the strongest heart in the family. Don't you ever let anyone make you doubt that. Love, Aunt Dorothy." I read it at the kitchen table and cried so hard Ethan had to bring tissues from the other room, not because of the money, because someone who had known my grandfather, who remembered him, saw me the way he did. But Aunt Dorothy's letter included something else. At the bottom she wrote, "Your grandfather wrote you a letter before he passed. He gave it to Elaine to deliver. Did you ever receive it?" I hadn't. I didn't even know it existed. 3 weeks later, Ethan found it in a box at Elaine's old house, discovered during the estate sale. Sealed, undelivered. 12 years in a box. My grandfather's last words to me, taken along with everything else. I opened the letter alone. Ethan offered to stay. I asked for 5 minutes. He kissed my forehead and closed the bedroom door. The envelope was yellowed. My name written in my grandfather's blocky, slanted handwriting, the penmanship of a man who had held a carpenter's pencil for 50 years. Inside was 1 page of lined notebook paper. "Hadassah girl, you've got more heart than anyone I know. Don't let anyone tell you different. I set something aside for you and Rebecca so you'd both have a good start. Your mama will take care of it until you're ready. I love you, sweetheart. Don't ever forget that." I held that letter against my chest for a long time. 2 days later, I met Rebecca at the cafe where I had first met Ethan. Same corner booth. She was already there, hands wrapped around a coffee she hadn't touched. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," she said. "You were surviving too," I told her. She nodded. "She told me you were jealous of me," Rebecca said quietly. "That's why you were distant. She said you didn't want me around." We stared at each other. 2 sisters raised under the same roof, kept apart by design. "She played us against each other," Rebecca said. "I know." "Ethan called me before the wedding," she added. "He invited me personally. Mom told me you didn't want me there." I closed my eyes. Even months later, the layers kept unfolding. "I want us to be real sisters," Rebecca said. "Not whatever she made us." I reached across the table and took her hand. "We already are." We sat there for an hour. We didn't fix everything, but we started. And starting was enough. 3 months after the wedding, a letter arrived. Elaine's handwriting. No return address. I recognized the sharp E, the slanted W, the looping curve of my name. I opened it at the kitchen table. Ethan was at work. I was alone, and that felt right. It was short. 4 sentences. "Hadassah, you have destroyed this family. I hope you're proud of what you and that man have done. I will never forgive you. No apology, no acknowledgement, no truth. Just Elaine, still rewriting the story. still casting herself as the victim, still refusing to look in the mirror. I sat with that letter for an hour. I let myself feel everything, the anger, the grief, the exhaustion, and underneath it all, the small, stubborn sadness of a daughter who still wished her mother had been different. Then I wrote back, "Mom, I didn't destroy this family. The lies did. I don't hate you, I probably never will. But I will not let you hurt me again. If you ever want a relationship with me, it starts with honesty. Real honesty. Not the kind where you rewrite the story to make yourself the hero. Until then, I need space, and I need you to respect that." I sealed the envelope, stamped it, walked it to the mailbox. I didn't wait for a response. That evening, Ethan came home and found me on the couch, staring at the ceiling. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be." He sat beside me, didn't ask questions, just stayed. I looked around our apartment, small, rented, nothing fancy. On the wall hung our wedding photo. I'm smiling. Ethan is smiling. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, Rebecca is laughing in her sage green dress. 3 people who chose truth over comfort. That was enough. Love without honesty isn't love, I said to no one in particular. It's just control with a nicer name. 6 months after the wedding, another Tuesday, another October, I'm sitting in my new studio, a small space above a bakery downtown, paid for with a piece of the money that was always meant to be mine. There's a drafting table by the window, a second-hand bookshelf filled with design books, and a framed print of a cardinal. Ethan gave it to me because Grandpa Franklin used to say cardinals were visitors from people who loved you. Rebecca comes by every Thursday now. We're learning how to be sisters without a filter between us. It's awkward sometimes. We don't agree on everything. But we show up. That's what matters. Ethan is still Ethan, steady, quiet, still double-checks the grocery receipt every single time. Last week he caught a pricing error at the store, and I laughed until I couldn't breathe. Some things don't change, thank God. Rebecca told me our mother started seeing a therapist. I don't know if it's real or just another performance, and I've decided it's not my job to find out. I spent 29 years trying to decode my mother. I'm done. I used to think strength meant keeping the peace, saying yes when I meant no, swallowing the truth so someone else could stay comfortable. Now I know better. Strength is standing in a room full of people and choosing honesty over comfort, even when your voice shakes, even when the person you're standing up to is the one who raised you. My mother gave me the worst gift anyone could give at a wedding, but my husband gave me the best one, the truth. And my grandfather, even from the other side, never stopped fighting for me. If you're watching this and something in your life feels off, a number that doesn't add up, a story that keeps changing, a person who makes you feel small every time you ask a question, trust that feeling. You're not crazy. You might just be living inside someone else's lies. My name is Hadassah Wilson. I'm 29 years old, and this is what I want you to take with you after this story ends. If someone controls your money, they don't just control your finances. They control your choices, your fear, and the version of yourself you're allowed to be. Know your numbers. Check your accounts. Transparency isn't paranoia, it's protection. Silence is not loyalty. Staying quiet to keep the peace doesn't make you kind, it makes you invisible. Sometimes the most loving, courageous thing you can do is speak the truth, even when everyone around you would rather you stay comfortable and quiet. And the right partner won't just stand beside you when things are easy. They'll stand with you when the truth is heavy, when it costs something, and when speaking up feels terrifying. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink. It helps you become whole. If this story stirred something in you, listen to that feeling. It's not weakness, it's awareness. It helps more than you know. And if you've ever had to set a boundary with someone in your own family, tell me. I read every single one. There's another story linked below that I think you'll really connect with. Click it.